In fourth generation form, Audi's A8 is smarter, more efficient and groundbreaking in its use of autonomous driving technology. Better established badges in this sector may be tempting, but they can't offer many of the almost unique things this car brings to the full-sized luxury saloon segment. Mild hybrid engine electrification, all-wheel steering, and for most models, an active suspension system are just a few examples. In short, there ought to be enough here to please the most demanding boardroom buyer.
Is this the most technologically advanced luxury saloon you can currently buy? Well, this fourth generation Audi A8 claims to be just that, aiming to usher in a new era of sophistication, not only for its brand, but also for the industry as a whole. In short, it's a car you simply can't ignore. Vorsprung Durch Teknic, advancement through technology. Remember that? It was once the mantra that dictated everything Audi did, originated back in the 80s to describe the company's 100 and 200 series models that really were the most advanced executive contenders of their time. The car that really epitomised this philosophy, though, arrived shortly afterwards. That was the first generation version of this A8 model, launched back in 1994. Things like aluminium space frame construction, double-glazed windows and an LED driver information display really were groundbreaking back then, and that original A8 had them all, instantly making its Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series rivals look out of touch and behind the game. It's that kind of segment leadership that this Mark IV model aims to re-establish. It's having to do that because the second and third generation versions of this car, launched respectively in 2003 and 2010, didn't really take up that predecessor model's technological gauntlet. Aside from Quattro four-wheel drive, they offered boardroom buyers little that they couldn't get elsewhere in the full luxury saloon sector. And by the middle of the 21st century's second decade, Audi had slipped back not only behind Mercedes and BMW, but also behind brands like Lexus and Jaguar and even Tesla in the segment pecking order. A giant step forward was needed for this Mark IV A8, and apparently that's just what's been delivered. At its launch in late 2017, it was, according to its maker, a car with a greater capacity for autonomous driving than any other in the world. Integrated Audi AI technologies able to allow its user not only to relinquish control at certain speeds, but actually to engage in other tasks unconnected with driving. But that's just the start. The petrol and diesel engines used have become much more efficient thanks to MHEV, mild hybrid electrification, and the new era cabin is now completely touchscreen orientated. Sleek exterior styling introduces a fresh design language for the brand, and it clothes a body structure fashioned from a high-tech mix of aluminium, steel, magnesium, and carbon fibre reinforced polymer. Plus, options include four-wheel steering and an astonishingly sophisticated active air suspension system. In short, it's Vorsprung Durch Teknic to the max. But will all that be enough to ease this car clear of its accomplished rivals? Time to find out. One day, actually quite soon, our cars will drive themselves. Some of them already can, though the extent to which that happens varies widely. Audi claims that this fourth generation A8 leads the way in this field, with the potential to provide what's known as level 3 driving autonomy. It's this model's most unique selling point, which you might think to be somewhat strange given that it will sell most widely to chauffeurs and private hire drivers, people you'd think would be less than enthusiastic about the prospect of autonomous driving. Presumably, Audi takes the view that if it doesn't set a fresh standard in this regard, then one of its competitors will. Rivals Mercedes and Tesla have already progressed on from what the Society of Automotive Engineers calls level 1 autonomy, which covers automatic driving assistance devices like active cruise control, to a level 2 standard that, with driver supervision, sees cars able to look around and autonomously react to their environment. In principle, level 3 is a step beyond this that sees the car itself assuming overall control. The driver must remain as a safety net, but he or she can engage in other tasks like watching TV or turning around to talk to folk in the back. Now, if you're interested, level 4 represents full autonomy in autonomous environments like cities or motorways, reducing the driver's role to that of an interested bystander. And at level 5, well, you don't even need a steering wheel, at which point our cars will become little more than mobility pods. Thankfully, we are some way off that point. In fact, if you were minded to be critical of Audi's efforts here, you might be tempted to point out that this A8 is actually some way off full compatibility with level 3. In most markets, it couldn't offer it at all at launch, as the company waited impatiently for government legislation to catch up with automotive technology. And when this car's so-called AI capability is operational using the brand's traffic jam pilot system, it only works at under 37 miles an hour on major highways featuring a physical barrier separating both directions of traffic. Now, that isn't to deny that quite a step forward's been made here. After all, you might reasonably question how really autonomous the level 2 systems that you'll find on a rival Mercedes S-Class and Tesla Model S really are, given that they continually require you to intervene or at least reassure the camera systems that you're still in charge. In contrast, given the right circumstances, this A8 really will drive itself. Plus, Audi has provided parking pilot and garage pilot systems that allow you to stand on the curb and remotely park it too. Now, that uses a smartphone app which will enable it to perform far more complex maneuvers than anything that competitor systems can manage. But enough with autonomy. Fortunately, this car has a great deal more than that to offer, as is necessary if Audi is going to make headway in the boardroom level full luxury saloon segment, in which every rival has recently been either thoroughly revised or completely redesigned. In response, the A8 has plenty in its armoury. It rides on the same super sophisticated MLB Evo platform used by the most recent Porsche and Bentley models. Its mainstream V6 turbo engines all come with MHEV, mild hybrid technology, and it's the first model in the segment to offer a combination of four-wheel drive and four-wheel steering. And it is the only car in the class that in some mainstream guises can offer an air suspension system that's able to be embellished with predictive active technology that reads and reacts to the road ahead. Now, there's quite a lot to deal with there, so let's start with the engines. Both 3 litres in size and designated either 55 in TFSI petrol form or 50 in TDI diesel guise. Those unfamiliar figures coming courtesy of Audi's complicated new naming convention, which sees 2 numerals representing different power output bands. Both are evolutions of existing units that are mated to the brand's familiar 8-speed Tiptronic Auto gearbox, and they come primarily enhanced by the addition of the clever 48-volt electrical system that was first introduced on the brand's SQ7 SUV. Now, this improves torque, power and throttle response, but it's chiefly there to boost efficiency at cruising speeds where the car can coast with the engine switched off, and in traffic where the MHEV setup gives extended stop-start intervals. Thanks to the current legislative disapproval of diesel power, the mainstream A8 55 TFSI petrol variant is likely to enjoy a slightly higher take-up than it might have done in times past. It offers 340 PS, that's good enough to get you to 62 mph in 5.7 seconds, en route to a maximum that, as usual on A8s, has to be somewhat pointlessly limited to 155 miles an hour. Most buyers, though, are still going to want to opt for the most affordable diesel model, the A8 50 TDI derivative that we're trying right here, reassured that the lower 286 PS power output will be more than compensated for by a larger helping of torque. There's 600 newton meters of it. And sure enough, that's enough to hurl you to 62 miles an hour in just 5.9 seconds, which you might think was quite something from a 2-ton limo able to return up to 50 mpg in regular use, until you find that obvious rivals can manage that too. Only one of those, though, the BMW 7 Series, can compete in the mainstream part of this segment with a product that offers both petrol and diesel variants with four-wheel drive, the A8's Quattro system having long been this model's most prominent selling point in this sector. Audi's setup pushes 60% of power to the rear and 40% to the front during normal driving, but if grip is lost at either end, the majority of power instantly goes to the other axle. Even BMW, though, can't match this car's party piece embellishment to Quattro four-wheel drive. That's the optional dynamic all-wheel steering package that we've been trying here. As usual with such technology, the idea is to improve high-speed cornering stability by making the rear wheels slightly turn in the same direction as those at the front, and also to improve low-speed maneuverability by, in that situation, getting them to turn in the opposite direction to the fronts. It's the parking speed enhancement that you'll probably notice most, reducing the turning circle of this short wheelbase model to 11.4 metres. That's pretty good for a huge luxury saloon of more than 5 metres in length, an improvement of around a metre over both the standard car without that feature fitted and most obvious rivals. It's in such an urban environment that the standard air suspension system comes into its own. Overall, our testers felt that it was even a touch better than the similar setup that you'll find on a rival Mercedes S-Class, which means that it's very, very good indeed. It flows comfortably over potholes and speed humps, but it's also able to keep chassis movement in check through turns at higher speeds without channel ferry levels of body roll. There's a lift mode for rough roads or ramps, and at over 74 miles an hour, the suspension automatically lowers itself to improve the aerodynamics. Now, an important option, unfortunately not available on this Volume 50 TDI variant, is the opportunity that buyers get to specify predictive active suspension. Now, this uses an electric motor to alter the damping characteristics of each wheel in accordance with camera-driven feedback on the topography of the road ahead. Mercedes' similar magic body control setup is limited only to really exotic versions of its S-Class, and it doesn't have a really clever additional feature that you get with the A8 system. With the Audi, the same electric motors can also instantly raise the side of the chassis by up to 80 millimeters if a T-boning impact's imminent, allowing the structure's more resilient seals to take more of the brunt of the collision. If you have to stick with the standard air suspension package, then don't worry. As we said, it's brilliant, and of course, as you'd expect, you can tweak the way that it works through the usual comfort, efficiency, dynamic and auto settings of the Drive Select driving mode system. That, of course, also alters throttle response, steering feel and the auto transmission's gear shift times. In the dynamic mode that ought to see the A8 at its most agile, this fourth generation model feels a much more responsive partner than its rather dreary predecessor, especially with a four-wheel steering system fitted. You sense quite quickly that it's far easier to push along through the bends than that previous car and most rival models, and the engineering stats explain some of the reason why. There's a big 24% increase in torsional rigidity this time around, enabled by the new MLB Evo platform and by a more sophisticated body structure featuring a magnesium strut brace at the front and a carbon fibre panel that sits across the rear bulkhead. Don't misunderstand us. We're not suggesting that the A8 is in conventional terms rewarding to drive. We're just saying that a big improvement has been made here, and that by class standards, should the need occur for you to push things along, this fourth generation model will do a better job than you might expect in trying to respond. The limiting factor here is steering feedback. Unfortunately, there's not a great deal of that, although the helm is certainly now more precise, and that's aided by a progressive setup that allows it to operate more and more directly as the turning angle increases. Standard wheel selective torque control further helps through the bends, minimally braking the two wheels on the inside of the corner before they can begin to spin. And there's the option of a sport differential, which at speed through tight turns can constantly vary the amount of torque distributed to each of the rear wheels. What else might you need to know? Well, we should talk about the engines on offer beyond those of the two mainstream models. All of the more powerful units are likely to be rare choices in our market. So as usual, the A8 hierarchy is topped off by a high-performance petrol variant, a V8 sporting S8 derivative, and a plutocratic 6-litre W12 flagship with 635 PS. Much more relevant, though, is the plug-in hybrid 60 e-tron version, which makes the 3-litre TFSI the engine of the conventional petrol model with an electric motor that boosts total output to 449 PS. More conventionally, you could also opt for a couple of 4-litre V8 models, a 435 PS 60 TDI diesel or a 453 PS 60 TFSI petrol. Whatever your variant of choice, in driving this A8 you always tend to feel that you're only sort of scratching the surface of what this car's been designed to do. That is obviously the case in terms of its autonomous driving tech, but it also applies in other areas too. The drive dynamics in particular are, as we've said, quite surprising, although throughout the sheer weight and width of this car will never be very far from your mind. The exemplary refinement though, that's much easier to appreciate, or at least it is at speed. Now Audi says that the A8 is the quietest car it's ever built, but it doesn't feel that way when you're standing right next to an idling TDI variant. On the highway though, the cabin easily reaches the whisper quiet standards required in this class, which is just one of the many things that now allow you to pitch this car credibly against its toughest rivals. It's an A8 that at last sits comfortably at the top table in this segment. "20 years ago, this is a piece of styling we'd have been gasping over, a progressive and sophisticated vision of how the moneyed elite would travel in the 21st century's third decade. Today, we're a little more used to futuristic styling statements of this sort, but the fourth generation A8 still looks technically advanced and comfortably ahead of its time. Handsome and imposing, if not classically elegant. Stylist Mark Lichter says it ushers in a whole new era of design for the brand. Size matters in this segment, so the A8 has become larger still, as you can appreciate from this profile perspective. Even this standard version is 5.17 metres in length, 37 millimetres longer than before, while its long wheelbase stablemate has put on 130 millimetres to better justify its entry-level limousine status. Either way, the profile's become a touch more dynamic this time around, courtesy of this slightly more coupe-like rear silhouette and two mid-level style lines. One starts from the headlamp corner and flows back through the door handles, and just above there's a second contour which begins from the bonnet edge and extends right back into the boot. The huge wheel arches house rims that are between 18 and 20 inches in size. We've got the 20 inches here, and they're separated by a lower styling crease that rises gradually towards the rear. The front is much more imposing than before, with a considerably larger hexagonal single-frame grille, which you'll best appreciate if you're one of those people who think modern car design can never feature too much chrome. It's a starting point for a whole series of adjacent lines and surfaces, including the bonnet contours and the LED headlights that feature daytime running light strips that are designed to be a visual extension of that grille's top slat. In this case, these lamps also feature Audi's optional matrix technology, with each lamp incorporating no fewer than 138 LEDs. Further down, substantial chrome frames surround the air inlets with a flat centre inlet connecting them. Audi's done its best to give the rear end a bit of a sense of zeitgeist too. An LED light band incorporating an embedded chrome strip extends across the entire width and looks distinctive. If you want to make even more of a statement, then there's the option of an OLED rear light package with organic light-emitting diode technology, using 4 ultra-thin filaments that bear the Audi brand rings and which put on a dramatic light show whenever you arrive at or leave the car. Now, we're not sure that even more chrome back here was really necessary, but you get it anyway, with this strip across the lower part of the bumper, which integrates the trapezoidal trims of the exhaust system. As ever with an A8 though, it's what's underneath all this tinsel that really ought to command your attention, namely the high-tech aluminium Audi space frame, which debuted a quarter of a century ago and which now incorporates not only aluminium and steel, but also magnesium and carbon fibre reinforced polymer, all of it bonded together using no fewer than 14 jointing techniques. Now that frame is attached to the latest stiff, sophisticated MLB Evo platform that the Volkswagen Group uses currently currently for all its largest cars, including Audi's own Q5 and Q7 models, as well as the Bentley Bentayga and the Porsche Cayenne. It all explains the 24% improvement in torsional rigidity that the A8 can offer this time around. And that's the reason also why this Audi tips the scales at much the same curb weight as a rival Mercedes S-Class, despite having to carry around the extra weight of a four-wheel drive system. Now we'll take a seat at the wheel, pausing on the way to notice the way the door handles are now all operated by micro switches that require just 5mm of movement when you go to use them. This car's full of little touches like that. And most of them on show inside, where the Vorsprung Durch Teknic charisma of this car really gets into gear. Now you're going to need to like screens, because this completely redesigned cabin incorporates no fewer than 3 of them. The 2 you'll notice first, powering up as soon as the doors opened and dominating the upper and lower parts of the piano black trimmed centre stack. Now we did have reservations about this kind of layout when we first encountered it in a Range Rover Velar, because of the slightly distracting way that it's sometimes necessary to look down at the lower screen when you're driving. Audi has designed the whole setup better, firstly because the lower display deals only with climate control and comfort functions, and secondly because the whole setup works with haptic feedback, which sees the touchscreen surface emit a tactile and acoustic signal when a function's pressed. As a result, once you get used to where everything is, you shouldn't have to look away from the road in order to operate any given function. Now true, there isn't the gentleman's club ambiance of a Mercedes S-Class or the purposeful design purity of a BMW 7 Series, but as with the exterior, that is somehow appropriate. This Audi ought to offer something different and more technological, provided that also incorporates the required splash of elegance needed for a car of this status. Now this is delivered by exquisite trimming using aluminium and Alcantara finishing, along with lovely open pore wood inlays. We've got fine grain ash here, though it is all a little overshadowed by the overriding emphasis on high gloss black surfacing. The Valcona leather-trimmed comfort spec front seats offer unsurpassed levels of luxury in this class, crafted from a variety of carefully shaped flexible foam layers. Not quite so enamoured with the design of the 4-spoke wheel that they perfectly position you in front of, but there's little to fault about the instrument binnacle you view through it, which as standard features an improved version of the configurable Audi virtual cockpit screen that we're now used to seeing in the brand's smaller models. This 12.3-inch TFT digital monitor works as usual with 2 selectable layouts, a classical view that prioritises a couple of prominent dials, and an infotainment mode which shrinks the pair of gauges to allow more central space for various data readouts or a full-width navigation setup. Not that you really have to look at the instruments at all, thanks to the standard provision of a head-up display that projects virtually everything you really need to know onto the lower part of the windshield, right up into your line of sight. All of this works, of course, in concert with the 2 centre stack screens I mentioned at the beginning, the gently curved upper 10.1-inch display blending almost invisibly into the surrounding high-gloss black trim and operable by touch, voice or steering wheel controls. It deals with the most important radio, media and telephone functions, plus the far more sophisticated intelligent 3D navigation system that's been developed for this 4th generation model. As you'd expect, there's the usual Audi smartphone interface, which is compatible with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto systems. And of course, you get a full suite of Audi Connect media connectivity features that, amongst other things, deliver online media streaming, a Google Points of Interest search function, a comprehensive Audi online traffic information system, plus news and weather feeds via a Wi-Fi hotspot supporting the new superfast LTE advanced mobile data network. As we've said, this lower monitor, which is 8.6 inches in size, is reserved for more comfort-orientated features, although its screen can also be used to trace letters that the MMI search system can then use to give you selection options. Of course, you might expect that to be just another thing that would leave these lovely shiny displays continually coated in grubby fingerprints, and you might also worry about sunlight reflection. Audi has tried with partial success to mitigate both of these issues by use of an anti-fingerprint coating and a layer of anti-glare film, but to some extent both problems still remain. Onto storage space. The main receptacle for this is a shallow twin-lidded area between the seats that also incorporates the Audi phone box system's wireless charging mat, plus SIM and SD card ports and a couple of USB points too. A lidded cubby next to the gear stick gives you twin cup holders and a 12-volt socket, and there's a netted compartment in the passenger footwell, but that's about it unless you count the small door bins, the severely compromised glove box, or the tiny compartments that sit behind the door handles here. Time to take a seat in the rear. Now, the long wheelbase version features possibly enormous rear doors, as you might expect it would, given that variant's 5.3 metre length. Even this standard body style, though, allows you to enter in a grandly opulent fashion. And yes, even if you happen to be wearing Palace Garden Party headgear. Now, earlier we mentioned the slight coupe-like curvature that distinguishes the rear part of the roof this time around, but that is a flourish that this Audi can afford without any effect on door aperture height, because this fourth generation A8 sits 13mm higher than its predecessor. Now, what you'll find inside depends on which of the rear seat packages you've chosen to specify. Standard models get this conventional 3-person rear bench, but if you've gone for the long wheelbase body style, it's really quite likely that you'll want one of the optional rear seat packs, which give you 2 individual seats, which are separated by a leather-covered centre console. Now, if that is the case and you've ticked all the boxes, you'll even get an electrically retractable footrest for the left-hand passenger, which is built into the front passenger seat back and which can both heat and massage feet which have been made weary after a day of pounding through boardroom corridors. Even with this standard body style and this conventional rear bench layout, it can all be made to feel pretty plush. That's if you add in long wheelbase model features like sun blinds, powered heated seat adjustment, 4-zone automatic air conditioning, and these luxurious comfort headrests trimmed in soft velvety cocoon leather. All A8 customers can specify this neat removable rear seat remote tablet with its 5.7-inch OLED screen, which can operate the seats, the lights, the blinds and the infotainment system. And if you've got this conventional bench, this slots into its own compartment in the fold-down armrest, which also includes storage and pop-out twin cup holders, and into which can be added a wireless phone charger on request. Wood inlays on the front seat backs and Alcantara door trimming add the required element of exclusive luxury, while as a finishing touch you could order these super bright matrix LED reading lights and tick the box for the colour configurable extended LED interior lighting pack, which amongst other things gives you these sleek LED roof lighting strips. Time to check out the boot, which rises electrically and can do so with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper. Should your chauffeur have taken the day off and you found yourself approaching the car laden down with bags. And now we'd expected trunk space to have increased with the extra body length this time around, but actually it shrunk from 520 to 505 litres. Now that is a fraction less than you get from Mercedes and BMW rivals, but it's still enough to take up to 8 carry-on suitcases, and of course a couple of golf bags are easily accommodated. If you're not careful though, you'll easily scratch this shiny chromed sill when you're lumping them in. The underfloor space is entirely taken up by the spare wheel, but you do get a floor net that can be strung between the chromed tie-down hooks, and there's this small netted area on the left too. Now, if you're likely to be carrying longer items like skis, you'll need to pay extra for the optional ski hatch. Now, if you need more room for bigger items, then you've got an A8 with a rear bench rather than the 2 individual rear chairs. There's a useful fold-down backrest that you'd have to do without in the rival Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series. Unfortunately, for reasons that Audi can't explain to us, this feature can't be had in its usual split folding form, so you'll have to evacuate the rear passenger compartment every time you want to use it. You'll need a £70,000 budget for the 50 TDI A8 model, the 286 PS 3-litre diesel powered variant we're trying here, are the cars that most buyers in our market will choose. There is a premium of just under £2,000 on top of that for the alternative 55 TFSI model, a 3-litre 6-cylinder petrol variant putting out 340 PS. Now, like us, you'll probably find the badging unfamiliar. The 50 and 55 designations that are now used referring to different levels of power band now within the Audi lineup. Simpler to understand is the choice on offer between the usual two body shapes. There's a standard model, which you have here, and there's a lengthier long wheelbase option which costs £4,000 more in each case. You can also talk to your dealer about a few other engine options developed for this car. The two units we just mentioned use mild hybrid MHEV technology, but if you'd like your A8 to be more comprehensively electrified, then you'll want to find out about the plug-in petrol-electric e-tron derivative. Now here you get the 3-litre TFSI engine of the conventional petrol model boosted by the addition of an electric motor, so it can put out 449 PS. That PHEV A8 variant comes only in long wheelbase form, as does the exclusive 6-litre W12 585 PS petrol model. There are also two 4-litre V8 variants, a 60 TDI diesel and a 60 TFSI petrol, both with 435 PS. Whichever one you choose, your car will come with Quattro 4-wheel drive mated to 8-speed automatic transmission. So, with the range rundown completed, let's look at the value proposition on offer here and making sure we compare against full-sized rather than executive-sized luxury models. So in other words, pitching this A8 against cars in the Mercedes S-Class sector rather than the Mercedes E-Class segment that Audi targets with its smaller A6. So, using as a benchmark this A8 50 TDI Quattro variant that almost everyone buys, you're looking at paying about the same as you'd have to find for a comparably powerful BMW 730D in equivalent X-Drive form, but around £3,000 less than you'd have to find for a comparable Mercedes S350D, which has the disadvantage of only coming in rear-driven form. The other main segment contenders also lack four-wheel drive, even as an option, although Jaguar's XJ 3-litre V6 diesel compensates with an asking price which will save you around £9,000 over this A8. That is a significantly older design though, and lacking a lot of the technology that you can have on this Audi. And that is a comment that's also applicable to Maserati's Quattroporte, which in base diesel form costs around £2,000 more than a base diesel A8. Now, if you're wondering about Porsche's Panamera, well, that car uses V8 power in the diesel part of its range, so it competes rather more directly with an A8 in much pricier V8 TDI form. Enough on diesel. Aren't we now being told that petrol is a more environmentally friendly choice these days? Well, yes, but we don't really think that the conventional petrol-powered A8, the 55 TFSI variant, will make much sense for many buyers, although it does undercut direct rivals from BMW and Jaguar, and it costs the same sort of money that would buy you a base petrol Porsche Panamera. Now, if you are absolutely set on fueling a car of this kind from the green pump, then perhaps a better option is the Lexus LS500H, which starts from under £75,000. It uses a non-plug-in petrol-electric hybrid powertrain, and it would also be an interesting car to pitch against this diesel model, as well as, of course, being a direct alternative to a PHEV plug-in version of this A8. If you're happy to go a stage further down the road to electrification, then a full battery-powered Tesla Model S can be yours in 75 kWh form for a fraction less than the A8 50 TDI's asking price. If, having considered all of that, you conclude it is an A8 that you really want, then equipment levels shouldn't disappoint. All models get alloy wheels of at least 18 inches in size, LED headlamps that automatically dip themselves at night, an acoustically glazed windscreen, the parking system plus all-round parking sensor system, metallic paint, and a power-operated boot which you can activate with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper. There is also adaptive air suspension, and that is built into a drive select system that offers settings allowing you to tweak ride quality, throttle response, steering feel and gear shift timings to suit the way that you want to drive. Inside there's Valcona leather upholstery with heated front seats featuring 22-way electric adjustment and 4-way powered lumbar support. Up front, the instrument binnacle features a customizable 12.3-inch Audi virtual cockpit screen, plus there's advanced keyless entry, a rear view camera, a head-up display and an adaptive cruise assist system. And that is a particularly sophisticated version of adaptive cruise control. Plus, of course, there's a vast amount of infotainment capability, which we'll get to after we've covered the additional items that you can expect if you opt instead for the long wheelbase body style. Now, the highlight here is the rear seat remote package, which is based around a removable 5.7-inch OLED tablet that provides various climate, seat and convenience functions. Rear passengers also get their own Audi Music interface package with 2 USB ports and their own climate controls too via a 4-zone automatic air conditioning system. Plus there's a useful 230-volt socket for things like laptops, heated back seats, and they have luxurious comfort headrests and electric sun blinds for the rear window and the rear door windows. Now, whichever A8 body shape you prefer, you'd expect the infotainment technology to be cutting edge in a car of this one's pretensions. It is. You get Audi's top MMI Navigation Plus with MMI Touch package, but it looks very different here. In this A8, it features 2 centre stack screens, a 10.1-inch one up top and an 8.6-inch monitor just below that. Now, via the MMI setup, the display up top shows you an intelligent 3D navigation system, which is able to take into account traffic congestion and previously driven routes. It can brief you on filling stations and parking places on your route and include 3D graphic models of many European cities. The MMI package also includes a DVD player, a 10-speaker 180-watt DAB sound system, and the usual smartphone interface that hooks you up with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto phone mirroring connectivity systems. The Audi Music interface offers simple pairing with your mobile devices using 2 USB ports with charge and data functions. Plus, the Audi Phone Box package can boost your handset signal and includes a wireless charging mat to power it up. As an included part of that MMI system, there's a 3-year subscription to the Audi Connect Media Connectivity package, and that works via an embedded SIM card which is permanently installed in the car and which operates on a data flat rate, so you won't be stung with high roaming charges if you do a bit of intercontinental motoring. Now, that setup comes with an LTE data transmission module which establishes high-speed 4G Internet 3 access and creates in your A8 a Wi-Fi hotspot supporting the new super-fast LTE Advanced Mobile Data Network. It also allows you to navigate with images from Google Earth, access the Google Points of Interest search function with voice control, and use a web radio setup with stations from all around the world. Through the Connect system, you can access special in-car versions of your Facebook and also your Twitter pages, and it's also possible to read, write and send text messages and emails. The included online media streaming package gives you access to millions of music tracks, and there's also a clever Audi online traffic information system, and that uses live traffic information to reroute you around jams. Also built into Audi Connect is the Car2X services system that the brand has developed in partnership with Daimler and BMW. Now, that allows this Audi to often almost magically respond to future weather or traffic conditions, or to somehow know what's around the next corner. It's not magic, of course. The setup's instead driven by a mobile phone supported so-called vehicle swarm exchange of information system, which will see your A8 sending data on driving conditions back to a central hub, which then shares it with other drivers. What else? Well, you can take Audi Connect connectivity with you even when you're not in the A8, thanks to the improved My Audi app. Now, this transmits points of interest to the navigation system, streams music, and it can transfer your calendar to the MMI infotainment screen. The app also allows you to seamlessly plan a route across multiple devices. So, let's say you're going to a restaurant in an unfamiliar city, for example, and you have to park a few streets away from the venue. Navigation will continue with you on your smartphone as you complete the journey on foot. Now, finally, as usual with vehicle apps of this sort, you can use it to get a vehicle status report and to lock or unlock the doors from wherever you are. So, really, it's motoring in the 21st century. Onto the options available to A8 buyers. Now, the headline features relate to autonomous driving and primarily to the traffic jam pilot setup, which will allow what's known as level 3 autonomous driving capability. Now, the so-called autonomous driving systems offered by other brands in this segment and on lesser Audi models too are so-called level 2 autonomous driving features, which give the vehicle control over steering, throttle and brakes, but require the driver to remain in charge. With traffic jam pilot fitted, an A8 can drive itself in an unsupervised fashion at speeds of up to 37 miles an hour, so long as you're on a highway with a physical barrier separating both directions of traffic. It's quite a step forward. Two other optional autonomous features include the parking pilot and the garage pilot systems, which will allow you to park your A8 without being in the car, and that uses a smartphone app. Now, Tesla pioneered such autonomous parking technology, but Audi has refined it and enabled it to undertake far more complex manoeuvres. Just as important, though, we think, are the driving-related options you can add to this car that aren't autonomously orientated. Take dynamic all-wheel steering, which sees the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction to the fronts at parking speeds to considerably improve manoeuvrability, while at over 37 miles an hour, it turns those rear wheels in the same direction as the fronts to improve handling and corner turning. Now, if budget permitted, we'd be even keener to spend more on the intelligent active suspension system, which uses an electric motor to alter the damping characteristics of each wheel in accordance with the topography of the road ahead. Plus, it can also raise one side of the chassis by 80 millimeters if a vehicle is imminently about to run into side of you, and that allows the A8 structure's more resistant sills to take more of the brunt of the impact. Now, unfortunately, intelligent active suspension isn't available on this volume 50 TDI variant, but it can be specified with the more powerful engines. What else? Well, there are plenty of lighting options. Now, we'd expected that Audi's HD matrix LED headlamps might be standard here, but they're optional, and they're a feature that many A8 buyers will want. Now, the headlights incorporate sensors which work with an inbuilt camera that detects other road users as well as ambient light in built-up areas. The beams then react by dipping individual LEDs to prevent dazzle while still fully illuminating the remainder of the road. They even draw from the vehicle's navigation data to anticipate bends, adjusting the LEDs as you negotiate the corner. Now, for the tail lamps, there's an equally expensive OLED rear light package using organic light emitting diode technology, and that really will make your A8's boot area lighting signature eye-catchingly unique. Both these features can also be ordered as part of a package including an Audi laser light system that complements the LED high beam at speeds of over 44 miles an hour, providing a beam that's more intense in terms of range and brightness. Now, next on the list of priorities, optional priorities that is, will probably be the way you want to trim the rear passenger compartment. On a standard shape model like this one, you can, if required, individually add in the features of the long wheelbase variant. So that means the clever rear seat remote tablet with its 5.7-inch OLED screen, plus the sun blinds, the 4-zone automatic air conditioning, heat for the rear outer seats, and a pair of luxurious comfort headrests. You can also order super bright matrix LED reading lights and rear-mounted operation for the Audi music interface too. Plus, there's a rear seat entertainment pack that features the twin seat back-mounted screens you'd expect with this kind of option in this segment, but uniquely, it makes them removable too. Plus, each monitor individually functions as a fully fledged Android tablet. Rear passengers can also have their own wireless phone charger between the seats, and that features the Audi phone box system. And the two outer seats can be power operated, a feature that on a long wheelbase A8 you can have included as part of a rear comfort pack, and that adds in rear footrests, acoustic double-glazed windows, power assisted door closing, and those matrix LED reading lights I just mentioned. As you probably expect, it's the long wheelbase A8 body style you'll need if you want to make the back of this car feel really luxurious. For that, you'll ideally want limousine-like individual chairs rather than the sculpted bench that we have here, which of course is possible. Providing that as a long wheelbase buyer, you've already gone for one of the extended leather packs, you can have those separate chairs courtesy of an optional rear seat pack. Now this positions them between a leather-covered console, and it also includes remote control seat operation, footrests and powered lumbar support. At further extra cost, that centre console can incorporate an Audi exclusive cool box, basically a fridge that sits between the two rear chairs. You might also want to add the optional double fold-away rear table and tick the box for the seats to feature cooled ventilation and a massage function. And finally, for boardroom buyers without much of a budget ceiling, there's a top rear seat combination package, Rear Seat Pack Plus, that really will make you feel like a VIP, although choosing it requires you to have already specified the extended leather pack and that rear seat entertainment pack we mentioned earlier. So with Rear Seat Pack Plus, you get even more luxurious comfort, customised contour seats that shape themselves around you, and the passenger in the left rear will get an electrically retractable heated footrest with a massage function. So we've so far covered options on the four main areas: autonomous driving, handling enhancement, exterior lights and rear seat comfort. Beyond that, it's really a case of just picking and choosing between individual niceties and then perhaps signing off with a few aesthetic flourishes. So let's help you with that. Now, as a starting point in this final leg of specifying your own personal A8, you'll probably want the comfort and sound pack that we've been trying here, which packages up a trio of items that your A8 probably shouldn't be without. With this pack, you get the 360-degree camera system and an extended LED interior lighting pack, which adds colour configurable LED strip lighting right around the cabin, the roof, the armrests, around the seats, even in the door pockets. Really does make the interior feel special at night. The key comfort and sound pack inclusion, though, is the upgraded Bang & Olufsen premium 3D sound audio setup, available with either 17 speakers and 730 watts of sound, or at extra cost with 23 speakers and a thumping 1920 watt output. With or without the Bang & Olufsen package, you can spend more to add in a digital TV and a DVD changer. Other features that A8 customers sometimes choose include headlamp washers, privacy glass, a park assist system that automatically steers you into spaces, and a night vision assistant which displays a thermal image of the road ahead after dark. On this test car, we've got acoustic double glazing, powered door closure and adaptive windscreen wipers with integrated washer jets. There's a panoramic glass sunroof too, a single pane version on this standard model. Long wheelbase A8 customers get a double pane version of that. We've also been trying the air quality pack. That includes an ionizer and a fragrancer with adjustable intensity. This feeds either a summer or a winter fragrance into the interior, the first with a Mediterranean note recalling sea air, and the second with an alpine fragrance suggesting mountain air. Lovely. This car also features a plush comfort centre armrest, and if you like the idea of that and you'd appreciate a bit of extra leather around the interior, as well as the 4-zone automatic air conditioning system that we mentioned earlier and upholstery heating front and rear, then you'll want to know about the optional winter pack. Now this packages all that up with a heated windscreen and a heated twin-spoke leather multifunction steering wheel with shift paddles. On to aesthetics. There's a range of Audi exclusive paint shades if you can't find anything you like from the collection of standard metallic colours. And of course there's a selection of alloy wheel designs with various potentially very expensive 19 and 20-inch forged alloy rims. Inside you can specify interior inlays in walnut, lime or eucalyptus finishes, plus you can add special headlining either in cloth or in black, silver or beige coloured Alcantara. There are also 4 Audi exclusive leather upholstery upgrade packs, which in progressively priced levels coat almost every part of the cabin in a combination of Valcona leather and Alcantara. You can also cover the rear parcel shelf in Alcantara, and you can wrap the steering wheel and the gear shifter in more individual coloured leather with exclusive stitching. Switching to practicalities, there's a load-through hatch so you can push longer items like skis into the rear cabin. Plus, as usual, your Audi Centre will be able to offer you a garage door opener, tow bar preparation and the option of an electrically swivelling trailer hitch. We'd also want the Audi Connect stolen vehicle location system that, in the event of theft, allows your Audi call centre to locate your A8, disable it and even sound the horn and activate the indicators to draw attention to the vehicle. Enough with optional features, let's move on to look at safety. And before we get into all the electronic stuff, we ought to make the point that this car is fundamentally very safe, thanks to its torsionally more rigid body shell and structural front end. In a head-on collision, 3 stress planes in the nose section absorb the forces. Plus, there are Isofix child seat mountings, tyre pressure warning light, and all the usual front and side and curtain airbags too, with rear side bags also being standard. If a collision is inevitable, Audi Pre-Sense Basic will help you withstand it by instantly tightening the seat belts, closing any open windows and closing the sunroof if you've got one fitted. But of course, the whole idea is to avoid an accident in the first place, which is a task of a whole armoury of electronic camera-driven features. Now, over 40 of these have been developed for this generation A8, and the majority of those are standard. Via a driver assist button at the bottom of the centre stack, you can select the kind of electronic security blanket you want. Basic includes only the most important items, Maximum gives you everything, and Individual allows you to pick and choose the features that you want activated. At its lowest level, Basic, you get 2 main features. Pre-sense front autonomous braking is one of those systems that scans the road ahead, looking for potential accident hazards as you drive, and will automatically brake the car to try to avoid those if you don't respond to warnings. There's also lane departure warning with emergency assist, which works on the highway to alert you if you're drifting out of your lane, providing corrective steering assistance if necessary, and including the capability to also autonomously bring the car to a safe, controlled stop if you don't respond to warnings, as might be the case if, for example, you were suddenly taken ill at the wheel. The top maximum setting adds to this with a range of further features. The standard 3 are distance warning, which alerts you if you're getting too close to the vehicle in front, rest recommendation, which alerts you if drowsiness is detected in your driving reactions, and an exit warning system, which monitors the rear and side of your A8 as you get out of it, alerting you if vehicles or cyclists are approaching from behind. What else? Well, there's a standard Audi Connect safety and service feature, which will automatically alert the emergency services with your exact GPS location should you be in an accident that has activated the airbags. The LED headlamps feature high beam assist, which will automatically dip them in the face of oncoming traffic. And the virtual cockpit instrument binnacle screen incorporates traffic sign recognition. That's one of those setups that can picture road signs and display them on the dash. It is always possible to go further though, and should you want extra peace of mind, your Audi Centre salesperson will doubtless point you towards the various extra cost safety options on offer. The safety pack delivers crash active head restraints along with a really innovative piece of technology developed for this car, a pair of centre airbags located between the front and rear seats. Now these are there to offer extra protection in side collision and rollover situations, and they form a protective barrier between occupants. The Privacy Safety Pack Plus includes those 2 elements along with illuminated belt buckles and reversible seat back tensioners that minimise the movement of occupants to the front and sides during emergency braking. The other key optional safety pack you can specify is the one we've been trying here, the City Assist pack. And this includes 3 main features. Side Assist works as a blind spot monitor, warning you on the move if you're dangerously about to pull out to overtake in the path of another vehicle. Intersection Assist warns of dangerous cross-traffic movements at junctions and can, if necessary, automatically apply the brakes, preventing an accident. And Pre-Sense Rear warns you via a flashing light if you're about to be hit from behind, so you can try to take avoiding action. It can also warn you of oncoming traffic when you're reversing out of a space. One of the things that Audi is not quite so keen to talk about with this 4th generation A8 is the fact that it's gained around 95 kilos of weight this time around, which is a pity because without that, this model would have been class-leadingly light in its segment. Thanks to an advanced space frame construction that blends aluminium, steel, magnesium and carbon fibre reinforced polymer, it already manages to provide buyers with a healthy 4-wheel drive system while weighing no more than a rear-driven rival Mercedes S-Class. Having said all that though, we're still looking here at nearly 2 tons of premium German real estate, so you'll need to manage your expectations in terms of the efficiency figures that you're likely to get. Mindful of that, Audi has equipped all A8 engines with MHEV, mild hybrid electric vehicle technology, and that's made possible by a belt alternator starter, which is the nerve centre of the clever 48-volt electrical system that we first saw on the brand's SQ7 luxury SUV. In highway motoring at between 34 and 99 miles an hour, this enables the car to coast for up to 40 seconds with the engine switched off, and at slower speeds it provides for an increased energy recovery output of up to 12 kilowatts, and in traffic it allows for an extended stop-start function that can work at up to 13 miles an hour. Now, Audi claims that the combined impact of all this equates to a saving of 0.7 litres of fuel every 100 kilometres or 62 miles, so it is a worthwhile improvement. But it's not enough of one to enable Audi to claim any sort of class leadership status when it comes to the fuel and CO2 returns. This A8 does get pretty close though. This 50 TDI 3-litre diesel model can manage up to 50.4 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 145 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's enough to see this 4-wheel drive model get within a fraction of the readings of a rival 2-wheel drive Mercedes S350d. The 55 TFSI petrol derivative is of course some way off that, managing up to 36.7 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 175 grams per kilometre of CO2. As usual, those figures will vary if you upgrade from the standard 18-inch wheels to larger 19 or 20 inches, and that can make quite a difference. The CO2 of this volume 50 TDI diesel variant, for example, attracts a first-year vehicle excise duty charge of £200 in year one, but if you fit it with the larger 20-inch rims we have here, that figure will rise to £500. The petrol variant will attract a first-year VED cost of £800 regardless of wheel choice. If you want an A8 that betters the fuel and CO2 figures of these two mainstream variants, then it's to the plug-in hybrid petrol-electric 60 e-tron variant that you'll have to turn. Its 3-litre TFSI engine and powerful electric motor achieve 449 PS of output, the motor powered by a lithium-ion battery that can facilitate up to about 31 miles of all-electric driving when it's fully replenished. Fast charging will be possible using public or domestic charge points or wall boxes, or in the latter case via induction-based Audi wireless charging, which uses a pad in the garage floor to transfer power inductively to a receiver coil in the car with a power output of 3.6 kilowatts. Whatever your A8 variant of choice, magazine tests have pointed out that across the board, the efficiency figures that are quoted can be difficult to achieve in real-world motoring, but then that's not an issue exclusive to Audi. Much will depend on the driver, hence the Ingolstadt brand's efforts with this car to help the person at the wheel do more when it comes to frugality. As usual with the company's models, there's an efficiency setting on the Drive Select vehicle dynamic system, and that tweaks the air conditioning, the gear shift timings and the throttle response for maximum frugality. Going further than that requires proactive use of the efficiency assist setup built into the standard adaptive cruise assist system. Now this really is very clever, constantly gathering navigation data, camera images and feedback from the built-in Car2X message system that receives car swarm feedback from other similarly equipped vehicles. Using all this, the software can then contribute to a more economical driving style. For example, instructing you when to release the accelerator before entering a curve or behind a slower vehicle, for instance. Get onto the highway, and with the adaptive cruise control system activated, Efficiency Assist will automatically make all the frugal driving adjustments for you. If it knows that you're going to be travelling for a few junctions, it'll even use that coasting function we mentioned earlier to disengage the engine at cruising speeds for greater efficiency. In fact, if desired, the system can even automatically regulate acceleration and deceleration. What else? Well, do bear in mind that all versions of this car will be subject to the government's tax levy for models costing over £40,000. That stands at £450 a year for the first 5 years of ownership. And of course, as with all modern diesel cars, the TDI versions of this one use an AdBlue fuel additive, and that's stored in a separate rear tank, which will need to be topped up as part of regular servicing. Talking of maintenance, servicing your A8 should be no more taxing than is the case with one of the company's smaller cars. As usual with Audi models, there's a choice of either fixed or a flexible servicing regime, the choice between the two depending on the extent of your likely annual mileage. The fixed schedule is aimed at drivers covering fewer than 10,000 miles a year, and it includes an oil change service every 9,000 miles or every year, plus an inspection service every 19,000 miles or every 2 years. If you cover more than 10,000 miles a year, the flexible service schedule will be more appropriate. Now this regime includes oil change and inspection services at variable intervals of up to every 19,000 miles or every 2 years. Whatever package you go for, you'll need to change your brake fluid after the first 3 years and then every 2 years thereafter. Overall maintenance costs can be kept down if you go for one of the prepaid servicing packages that you'll be offered at initial purchase. Those can cover you for a maximum of 5 years and 90,000 miles. You may also be interested to know that this car can even book its own service appointments via an Audi Connect safety and service system app. As well as providing emergency calling and online roadside assistance, this feature can, at the appropriate time, send a service request direct to your local dealer. Alternatively, you can sign up for Audi Service Request, which uses the onboard Wi-Fi to enable your car to communicate with your dealer. As your A8 nears the time when work will be needed, the diagnostics will alert your nominated local Audi centre, who will then contact you to book in a convenient time. Another neat service that your dealer can offer you is the so-called Audi Cam system. Now here, technicians carrying out workshop inspections on your A8 can focus a handheld Audi Cam camera on specific problems, accompanying the image with a verbal diagnosis to create footage that can be sent to your computer or to your smartphone. That way you'll know precisely what work you're authorising on your car. On to residuals. Now, you don't buy a large luxury saloon of this kind, even one with a distinguished premium badge, and expect rock solid residuals. Still, this fourth generation A8 should perform a touch better than its predecessor in this respect, predicted in 50 TDI diesel form to retain 32% of its original value after the usual industry standard 3-year 60,000 mile ownership period. To give you some perspective on that, a rival BMW 730D X-Drive manages 30%, while a comparable Mercedes S350D manages 33%. In short, Ingolstadt is well in the ballpark here. And it's a similar story when it comes to pence per mile running costs. Experts CAP reckon that over 3 years and 60,000 miles, an A8 50 TDI will cost 90.08 pence per mile to run. That's around 3 pence per mile less than equivalent diesel Mercedes S350D, but around 2 pence per mile more than a rival BMW 730D X-Drive. So let's finish by covering the warranty. All cars in this class get 3 years of cover, but whereas BMW and Mercedes don't limit your mileage in this period, Audi rather meanly restricts you to 60,000 miles. Optional extra cost packages can extend that cover to either 4 or 5 years. As for insurance groupings, well, they'll be very comparable to those of the other premium brands in the segment. Standard wheelbase versions of the 50 TDI diesel and 55 TFSI petrol variants both attract a rating of Group 44E. Go for either of the long wheelbase models and the ratings rise to 45E. We're in no doubt that this is the kind of car Audi should be making. The brand built its reputation on technology and then fell back on stylistic design and cool marketing to sell its products. This fourth generation A8 signals a welcome change of direction, a reversion back to the company's core principles, offering things you simply can't get elsewhere. If it feels more advanced from behind the wheel, then that's because it is. For sure, segment rivals will quickly match this car's level 3 autonomous driving technology, but by then, Ingolstadt will no doubt have raised the bar once more. And even if you put all that to one side, it's the only contender in this segment that offers accessible variants able to feature fully active predictive suspension, and the only one which can be had with a combination of 4-wheel drive and 4-wheel steering. Of course, there are always going to be those who'll prefer the heritage and elegance of a Mercedes S-Class, or the slightly more dynamic demeanour of a BMW 7 Series. We also think that both of these rivals make a slightly more distinctively upper-class statement, although you may disagree. The whole point, though, is that an A8 ought to be a more futuristically modern boardroom conveyance, which is a kind of experience that this Mark IV model sets out to offer. Whatever your perspective, it's a formidable luxury segment contender and a fitting showcase for Audi's most advanced engineering. But is it a car that you could bond with, a luxury conveyance to love as well as admire? Well, the answer depends on the owner, of course. Some may still see the A8 as being a little remote compared with a wood-panelled Jaguar, a status-conscious Mercedes, or a proudly opulent BMW. We're guessing, though, that a small but significant number of boardroom buyers might now find this Audi a surprisingly complete all-round choice were they to be minded to consider one. Hugely capable, innovative and beautifully built, this is a car that rivals always feared Audi would build. And if you're in the market, it's one you need to try.